What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. Another short but sweet episode talking about books I've recently read that I highly encourage everyone to read, and just how the elimination diet is going and the energy healing bootcamp. So if you're interested in that, stick around. What up, what up, what up? All right, so another short but sweet solo episode today. So the elimination diet, let's just kick it off with that. I mentioned it last week on the podcast, so if you didn't listen to that episode briefly, I have been attempting to do an elimination diet for my autoimmune thyroid disorder, and it's not cutting out calories or carbs or anything like that. It's literally just eliminating inflammatory foods that can cause just inflammation in your body while still eating the macro plan that my nutrition coach has given me with my workout plan. So I have been on it roughly 5 weeks. This would be 6 weeks. And I've already cheated 3 times, not going to lie. And I always keep saying I'm going to restart because they say you have to go a full 4 weeks without any inflammatory foods. And that's just to kind of get your system regulated and down so that when you start reintroducing the foods to see what causes a response, then you would know. Well, we had book club last Friday, and although I could have just had a little bit more self-control, I wanted cookies. And so I ate my gluten-free vegan cookies, the Lawrence brand. If you've ever been in a grocery store and you see like a pink and white package and it says Lawrence cookies on it, that's the brand I typically get. So if you're gluten-free or vegan, those are a good option. They're very tasty. She has 4 to 5 different flavors. I will say though, the ones that recently came out with like 40% less sugar, they still taste the same. They just kind of crumble. So they're not as like sturdy. I guess if you're holding the cookie, they just kind of crumble. So just know that if you buy the 40% less sugar. So book club happened Friday and I wanted the cookies. So I ate the cookies, and that's that. Enough about the elimination diet. I'll keep y'all updated as it goes. I'll tell you where I am next week, I guess, on that. But last week was book club, last Friday, and we just read an amazing book that I kind of wanted to talk about. I had been planning on talking about this, but I didn't want to ruin it prior to book club just in case some of the girls in there listen to the podcast. But it's called The Body Is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love, and it's by Sonya Renee Taylor. And I will say, this book is such an easy read, and it's so good because she's not just talking about like, oh, you should be body positive and love yourself, and here's ways to do that. She's not. Like, she literally starts out the book saying, this book, just reading it alone, is not going to bring you radical self-love. Like, that's something you're going to have to figure out, you're going to have to work through, and you're going to have to practice it every single day. So I just like the honesty at the beginning. And it's also just not about weight either. It's just about loving your body without the voices from society or the voices in your head that you may not know where they come from, because we don't realize that the thoughts we have about ourselves literally stem from everything. She did a wonderful job at like quoting statistics and just how weight, and not even just weight, but like racism and transphobic or homophobic or all of it, like disabled bodies, how we are conditioned to think the way we are. Obviously, you create your own biases, but we're conditioned in a way by our childhood, by the past, by history, and just what you consume on TV, social media, and your friends that you're around. So highly, highly recommend this book if you've ever just been interested in how to love yourself more, which I think we all could do a better job of that, especially since the boom of social media. I feel like, we're all on there comparing ourselves to different people, when we all know that social media is just a highlight reel of people's life. I've been guilty myself of posting a picture while I'm sitting there crying behind it, and because I feel bad, I'm posting something to seek either validation or to make myself feel better instead of getting myself out of that on my own. So highly recommend that not even if you're struggling with your body, I just think everyone could benefit from this book just to learn how to not only appreciate your body, but how to stop judging everyone else's. And again, it's not just about weight or anything like that. It's about all bodies and the body that you live in. The second book that I read, and I'll just go ahead and preface this with, even though I just said The Body is Not an Apology and To Love Yourself, the next book that I'm about to say is not a diet book because it seems very contradictory, these two books, but it's called Glucose Revolution. And I'm not even going to try to say the last name of this author, but it's Jessie Inchauspe. I don't know. It's French. But she wrote this book about just how glucose spikes cause a lot of issues, like obviously number one, weight gain, but it also causes aging and just energy depletion, fatigue, brain fog, depression. It's just crazy how much like sugar can really affect you. And she talks about all forms of sugar, whether that be sugar in a candy bar, sugar in fruit, sugar, table sugar, just all of it. It's just really interesting. I'm also a nerd when it comes to nutrition books, love them. But the gist of it is, it's not a diet book. She teaches you how to like rearrange the order of food, or rearrange the food order that you're eating to make it more beneficial and less glucose spikes, or just tips and tricks on how to cut corners and kind of cheat when you want to have your sweets, because she encourages it. And yeah, I just think it's a really nifty book. So if you're really interested in lowering your glucose, then I highly recommend this book. I also, if you haven't noticed by my book reviews, I'm not the best at it. Once I've read something, listened to something, I can be like, oh, I heard this somewhere, I read this somewhere, but then I can't remember where. So I'm not the best book reviewer. But take it from me, book club loved The Body as an Apology book. It was one of our best conversation pieces that we've had so far, and we've been doing book club for a little over a year now, and I'll be honest, I haven't read all the books. Just the ones I find interesting or have time to read. But yes, so those are the two books. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this on last week's podcast about my sauna blanket that I purchased, but I did post it on social media and I had a lot of questions about it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about my sauna blanket. So if you've seen these advertisings, it's literally just like, so I got the infrared sauna blanket. I wanted the higher dose brand. It's just, to me, a little pricey. So I got one off Amazon that had amazing reviews and was like half the price. So if you want to know what that is, shoot me a DM and I'll tell you which one I got. And I've used it for probably almost a week now, and I've been using it every other day and I love it. So infrared saunas are supposed to be different than like a wet sauna where you know, the ones you feel like you can't breathe in. But this is a blanket and it's not a sauna that you go sit in. So your head's out of it anyways. But it's supposed to help reduce inflammation. Like if you have rheumatoid arthritis or autoimmune diseases, it's supposed to be really good at reducing that inflammation, maybe lower your antibodies. But also if you turn the temperature up, then you're going to sweat, which is also detoxing the body. And that could be from anything from chemicals, stuff like that, not detoxing to lose weight. So I've been trying that out, doing that every other day. And I will say that my neck pain that I've been having from just staring at a computer all day has tremendously decreased. So there probably is something to it. Definitely need to hydrate if you do that. I'm not a doctor. Don't take any medical advice from me. This is just what I'm doing because, like I said on last week's podcast episode, my autoimmune disease just hasn't gotten any better, and I'm just trying to help my thyroid as much as I can. So just trying to do natural things because I want to hopefully decrease the medicine I'm taking. But anyways, so I'm about 3 to 4 weeks into working with Meenu, the energy healer, that I just want to try to figure out why I do the things that I do. Why do I have all this anxiety? Why am I so worried about upsetting someone else? Which is obviously a people pleaser now that I think about it. But I wanted to know why. And I've obviously been in and out of therapy for years, and nothing against any therapist I've ever had. I enjoy going to therapy. I think I've gained a lot from it. I just wasn't moving at a faster pace as I wanted to. So karmically, I think I met Meenu, which I'm not going to get into that story, but I met her through a friend, and it's kind of awesome how I met her when I think about it, but not to share too much details about other friendships and things. I met Meenu last year, and I actually went and had a Reiki session with her, which I talk about on a podcast a couple episodes back with her, and we had talked about maybe doing like one-on-one teachings at the time, and clearly the timing just wasn't right. I wasn't ready. I was just like, I just don't think so. I have a therapist, I'm not going to spend all this money. And then something kind of happened in my life a month ago that I was just like, why not? Why the hell not? What can I lose? Let's just try this out. And I'm going to say right now, I have cried more than I have probably ever cried working with her in the past 3 to 4 weeks. So we went through, like, she works through past trauma and it's at an accelerated rate. And she just has a way of doing that. I don't know. She really should be a therapist. But we worked through that. And obviously I have abandonment issues from, my dad leaving at such an early age, and, the physical and verbal abuse that I endured with my sister. And just hold a lot of that in. So she's working on that and bringing that out. And I am a person that suppresses my emotions most of the time, which it's so weird when you're trying to explain yourself, because typically I suppress emotions. Like I hold them down, like, don't tell anyone. No one wants to hear that story over and over and over. Try to keep it to yourself. Even though I do share things with close friends, like, you don't always share all your feelings. And so then I suppress them. And I used to be like an exploder because I suppressed my emotions so much. Like I would suppress, like if someone did something and I felt some type of way about it and I didn't say anything, I would just suppress it. And by the 10th time something happened, I would just explode, leaving the other person kind of like, what the hell? Like, where did that come from? You've never said anything has ever bothered you. So I used to suppress my emotions, and now I'm just trying to understand them, where they come from, like why we feel the way we feel, because everyone goes through something, and the same exact thing could happen to 2 different people. And depending on your past trauma, what you've been taught, what therapy you've been through, what coping mechanisms you have, you're going to handle the situation differently. No 2 people handles the same situation the exact same in the exact same manner. So just working with her has been a blessing, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 to 5 weeks that we have. I've learned 2 things so far to help, like with my emotions, with my anxiety, which is tapping and then meditating. I have recently just learned how to meditate, and I thought I knew what it was, and clearly I don't. But it's harder than you think. Like, it's hard to get into a meditative state, trying to get your brain to not be so chaotic, especially when you have 5 million things to do and you're like supposed to sit still for 20 minutes. That is what's hard for me, just sitting still when I'm like, oh, but I need to get in my sauna blanket. I need to go for a walk. I need to read my book. I need to finish work. I need to cook. It's just hard when you're thinking all those things, but I digress. I am hoping to do that. And then the tapping, I'm definitely not going to try to teach anyone tapping, but it has helped me kind of ease my anxiety. So she's given me tools to, help, like when I do feel overly anxious, instead of just exploding or telling everyone, my business, or creating this anxiety that may not even be real, like I might be creating it in my head, taught me tapping, and to tap that energy out instead of holding it in and suppressing it, and then holding it in, suppressing it, holding it in, and suppressing it, where then it's built up so much that you can't control it, and that's why we explode. So I hope I did a good job at explaining that, because I don't feel like I did. But nonetheless, I'm enjoying the energy healing sessions and whatnot. And I will have some more interviews as soon as I have time and space for that. So thank you for bearing with me on these solo episodes. If you're loving the podcast or you have a topic that you would like me to discuss, definitely shoot me a DM or email. Everything's linked in the show notes. And if you would do me a little favor and head over to the Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave me a rating and review, hopefully a 5-star one. That helps push the podcast out to other people. And yeah, it helps me learn and grow myself. So thank you for listening and bearing with me through that rambling nonsense. But yeah, until next time, guys. Bye.